Right, so Stuart, what are we doing here?
Well, back in April 2011, we had a new piece of software called PF Track, and we wanted to create or recreate a video which we made years and years ago, wasn't it? It was a robot one.
Yeah, we've done a really basic when we first got a computer in 1996.
Yes, so we thought, well, we'll recreate a robot scene. So we needed to shoot some background footage.
So we went down here, didn't we?
We did.
And we wanted to make a little funny sketch, didn't we? So we did a little kind of funny thing with the whole. He had a little remote control, didn't you?
Yeah, little one. I forgot what that controlled actually. It was a little tiny robot you had anyway, wasn't it? Yeah.
And this was the scene just outside in the drive, wasn't it?
Seems a lot more cars than there was back all those years ago as well.
Well, you know, the population's grown since then.
Yeah.
So shall we check out how we did it?
Let's see how we did it.
Okay, so filmed with the camera.
Yep.
And that we can see here. If I go to this video here, this is it without anything. Obviously, the robot's missing, and you're having to act, aren't you, to nothing?
Yeah. So I've essentially got to act according to script to a robot which isn't there.
Yeah. Okay. So we've recorded the video, and so the next thing is to take the information of the real camera and to then translate that into a 3D package. And the package I use is called Maya, which we can see here. And it has a virtual camera which, once using this package called PF Track, you can then take all that information and apply it to your virtual camera. So this movement now that you can see this camera doing in the 3D package matches exactly what the camera was doing in real life. And what was the next step?
Well, okay, so we've had our back plate. We then needed to create that robot which isn't there. And to do that, we actually took some stock 3D models, which you got some screenshots of them here.
And then I added some details like the shininess and the metal and made it red. But this is the raw file without anything on it. And so then what's the next step?
Okay, well, as you mentioned in the past, if you're going to animate something, you need to know how it moves. And the best way of doing that is creating a reference file.
Yeah.
So you essentially became that robot which you're going to copy its actions.
Yeah, so embarrassingly, this is now me acting as a robot, if I can get it to play. Oh, here we go. Which is a little embarrassing, to be honest, and I don't know what the neighbours thought. Maybe they thought I was, I don't know, doing a new dance or something. The robot dance. But it is actually quite close to the final video, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, essentially you animated that robot to your actions, and I think, who knows what a robot would actually move like? You got an idea, but
yeah. So once I had that reference, I would then go along and get back into a 3D package to then animate the robot. So here we can see the final animation. Oh, if I go back,
so just go back to that.
Final animation is here, but it hasn't got any of the textures on it or any of the effects. So it's literally just the 3D model animated with none of the background or any shadows or any of those sort of fancy things that make it look real.
So, and this would be called a play blast, wasn't it? This is something which Maya does.
Yeah. So what was the next step after that?
Okay, so after the play blast, we need to do the render.
Yeah.
So we actually now need to render that action of that robot so it can go into our scene.
Yeah, so what rendering means is taking the computer will then add all the realistic things like what's metal, what looks like metal, what looks like rubber, how the light reflects off things. And so that was then the next step, which you can now see here. That played. And now it looks like he's floating around all over the screen, but you've got to remember that the back plate was all wobbly. So that is actually the same movement as the camera information that we actually recorded outside. But obviously we haven't got the back plate there. So now if we look at it with the back plate, so this is now Stuart again doing his acting. Brilliant actor. And then when we turn to see the robot, hopefully he won't actually be there at the moment. Here he comes. And he's not there, but we overlay him. So there he is now. He's gone. He's there. But there's something missing there. It doesn't look quite right, does it? Still, it kind of looks superimposed.
Yes, it does look superimposed. Obviously, this will go through another process of where we relight the robot to match the lighting of the scene, and we do that through HDR. But there's a particular characteristic, such as the shadows. You can see the shadows of the car.
Yeah, I'll go back to that.
Yeah, so you can see the shadows there of the cars. You can see the shadows of the trees. But the robot hasn't got a shadow. But if he was there, he would be casting a shadow.
Yeah. So the next thing was to render out in the computer again a shadow. So the robot's not there, but you can see all the dark areas, and that's the shadow. And I've also created the wall and the bush as well. So because the shadow would go across those particular parts of the scene as well.
So essentially, we had to tell Maya what the objects were for the shadows to go up against, and that's where you created them, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So then we like we did with the robot, we overlay the shadows as well. So here you can see it just with the shadows. Quite subtle actually. Oh. Hang on. So then it was just a case of putting those shadows, and that's not really a case, is it? It's it's because you have to click on the different programs. And
Yeah.
So here you can see the shadows are now overlaid, but there's no robot. So if I add the robot back in as well, we've got both the robot and the shadow. So he looks like he's sitting there a little bit better, isn't he? He's like in the world a little bit more. It just still doesn't look quite right. So what would be the next step as well?
Well, the next step is if you think he's a great big robot and he's walking down a gravel track. So what other sort of things would be which would be going on? Well, there'd be dust kicking up.
Yeah. So here we've got some stock footage of dust. Now you can create this in 3D, but actually sometimes it's easier just to have filmed footage of dust and particles because it looks so much more realistic. So we added that over the top as well.
Yeah, these are the sort of things we buy, aren't they? Rather than we try and do ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. So then we'd overlay that. There's also things like motion blur on the on 3D objects. When you render them out, they're like pin sharp. Whereas in the real world, if I wave my hand now, you can see if you pause that, it would be blurred, and that's just motion blur. It's just a natural thing that occurs on a shutter on a camera. So we add that to the 3D as well. So then with that, with all the effects and all the little subtle effects like the alarm lights going off and things like that.
Yeah, you don't see them as clearly in the YouTube video because of compression and various other bits and pieces. But we did actually colour in the lights going off. You have to sort of look at the whole footage and you say in real life, but when you're trying to make something look real, what other little bits would be going on at that time, and you sort of just try and add to it.
So once you put everything together, this is kind of the final result. Okay, so we hope you enjoyed that explainer video, and if you want to see the full final version, then you can click above now. We're thinking of doing a number of these, but we'd like to hear your voice as well, so if you can vote above if you'd like to see more. Again, just click above.
Yeah, we're going to do Ellies Unusual Accident, which you can see on the cards. You'll be able to click on to see that video. But what would be really great is if you actually emailed us, bubblegummonsters@gmail.com, with question in the subject line, and actually asked us a specific question about something you want to know about when we made that video. So at least we can tailor the videos to your suiting.
Yeah, and that's it.
Really, until next time, ta-da!